What weird thing does your body do that you just accept? My pancreas just refuses to produce insulin. It's really annoying, but what can you do? Voluntarily pillow erection, or to put it more cooler, I can raise my hair, i.e. have goosebumps at will edit. It's apparently rare, but seeing the amount of people saying they have it too, you should get in contact with James Heather, who is researching about the same. At least you can always read the wind direction. I have spinal stenosis. Basically my vertebrae are thickening and pressing against my spinal cord in my upper neck and lower spine. It causes numbness in my extremities and I have to do special stretches to help relieve the pressure. But man, sometimes I'll sit for a little bit too long and it's like my feet don't exist. I'll try to walk, but it's like walking on stumps. Back to the stretches, and within 10 minutes the feeling returns. I used to do 100-mile bicycle rides. Now I'm lucky if I can walk 3 blocks without tripping and falling. Is there no treatment for this? Sounds frustrating. Spinal problems are always hard to deal with. I can start taking gabapentin, but that has its own side effects, so I'm trying the natural route first. The other option is a surgical widening of the vertebra, but after consulting many neurologists and surgeons, they told me it's a last resort. I'm in my mid-50s, and while it's annoying as H, it's manageable. Granted, I can't run a marathon, but I'm still able to get to and from work, run my errands and get by. I have exploding head syndrome, which is a lot scarier sounding than it actually is, a sleep phase disorder. Basically, when I'm falling asleep I occasionally hear random phantom noises that startle me back awake. For me, I most commonly hear someone shouting my name, an unintelligible brief yell, knocking on the door, or the doorbell. I've noticed over the years that it tends to happen mostly when I'm overtired and or anxious, and I may not have one for months and then have them every other day for a week. I don't have the syndrome, but sometimes when I'm really sick and I try going to sleep I hear a door slamming shut or explosions outside and I jolt awake. Doesn't happen often. I'm white and pale AF. Normally avoid sun exposure due to not tolerating heat well and skin cancer running in the family. But earlier this summer I spent quite a bit of time in the desert. I got several shades darker, except for a bunch of random spots that are still white. They weren't covered and had the same amount of sun exposure as the rest of me, but just no color change at all. Biggest spot is on my bicep, but there are random spots everywhere. I've always had a streak like that along my hairline. Hair also grows in white there too, that my mom said was a birthmark. I'm guessing these new spots have always been there too but never apparent, because I avoid sun exposure. Sometimes when I yawn saliva literally squirts out of my mouth. No idea why. It's kinda weird. I have neurological issues that make me have phantom feelings. For instance, the last 2 days I've had a burning sensation, like if I rested a hot soup bowl on my thigh, but there's nothing there. It can feel like little bug bites, scratches or streaky burns. It's never severe, mostly just weird to feel a distinct sensation for no reason. Sometimes I'll ask a family member to check for marks. The other day I pulled up my shirt, turned around and asked my mom if there was anything on my back. She was like, "Oh my goodness, there is. Looks like one of the cats got you," and we were both so weirdly delighted I'd actually been mauled. Lol. Whenever I have to get up early next morning, my brain won't just let me sleep. I have this too. 6 AM flight. No way I'm sleeping the night before. I also have chronic insomnia, so I've always just lumped it with that issue. I will just randomly get a huge chill which looks like a mini seizure. People always ask what's wrong. I also like to get all my shivering dealt with at once. I get ocular migraines sometimes. They are not terribly frequent, though maybe once in a while they'll be persistent for a week or so. It's a strange experience. No pain, no headache, but an actual blind spot develops in my vision that appears sort of like a lightning bolt. It hovers there for about 20 to 30 minutes then gradually subsides. I'll tend to feel a bit weird for maybe an hour or two afterward, but then back to normal. They seem to be triggered by a combination of poor sleep, dehydration and, maybe, caffeine plus stress. Have had them off and on for about 10 years probably. Consulted with a couple doctors about it, and they've said it's probably nothing to be too worried about unless it starts happening more frequently / intensely. I don't feel dehydrated even though I am. When I was a kid, I've gone whole days without drinking anything. I've just learned to force myself to drink water every hour. Until I developed this routine, I never understood how my lips were supposed to feel like as they were always dry. When I yawn and stretch I become blind for a few seconds. Don't know if that's normal. I get sharp intense pains on the left bottom side of my ribs randomly. I just suck in air and hope my rib didn't puncture my lung. Sometimes it's when I'm working out, but sometimes I'm literally just standing there and whoops popped a lung. Edit. Some more context. I'm 18 and have been experiencing these since I was 15. Happens whether I breathe in or out. Hurts like hell for a minute and then passes. I mainly breathe in more air to stop myself from screaming. I've never seen a doctor for it because I saw a post online saying that most teenagers experience this pain because our ribs are growing. Don't know the medical truth of that, but whatever, it calmed my TTS and made it easier to live with. I hope one day we are all cured from whatever this nonsense is. Sometimes a part of my body just twitches. Shoulder, toe, bicep, etc. etc. It stops after a while, but I can never get a good look at it because if I move my head it stops. Doesn't hurt and only happens every few days. That always happens on my cheek for some ungodly reason. I was born with a disorder that makes crossover motion between both sides of my body more challenging. Riding a bike took me a year to master. For context, the hardest thing for me to do autopilot is stairs. Though, if I don't think about it, my body automatically goes one at a time with both feet rather than alternating. Interesting. I work with little kids, and we do a lot of things that involve crossing the midline to help strengthen this skill. And it can also have an effect on reading comprehension later in life. Does it affect your ability to scan a page from left to right while reading? I can control my pinky toes separate from the rest of my foot. Never thought it was weird until my mom was like, what the F, and apparently most people can't do that. I have Alice in Wonderland syndrome. It's a real thing. Honest. Basically, sometimes my brain makes me think that I'm swelling up, like I'm being inflated like a balloon. And I feel all big, like I'm getting too big for the room. That normally happens when I'm starting to feel sleepy. Occasionally I'll go the opposite way and feel as if I'm being squashed down from above, like a giant hand is pressing me down into the road and everything is towering above me. I can normally ground myself by feeling myself and reassuring my brain that I'm normal sized if it's a big balloon feeling, or by staring up at the sky then slowly adjusting to the horizon for a few moments if it's a squashed small feeling. I make a weird croak sound with my throat whenever I yawn. Me too. It's so awkward when I'm in a call because then the person is, or did you just burp? Nah, I'm a frog. Time of the month sometimes skips 2 to 4 months before continuing as normal. I don't even care. I get one-time hiccups every now and again. Just to make them a bit more noticeable, they sound like someone stepped on a squeaky toy. Or as someone once thought, a ninja bird squawking behind her. It's a great icebreaker if nothing else. It's worse when I get regular hiccups, and it sounds like a puppy going to town with its new toy. I subconsciously have my stomach tensed all the time. I have to concentrate to relax it. I do this. But for me, I know why I do it. As a kid I was always told to suck your belly in. And that's it for me. My palms start to itch and swell if I'm in a crowded place. I used to think it was some kind of allergy, but I'm noticing recently that the swelling starts whenever I'm in places that make me feel uncomfortable. If I focus on my heart I start to freak out. In socially stressful situations I feel compelled to find solitude, and I do this weird jazz hands thing, which sounds like stimming. Sometimes I genuinely forget to breathe if I'm mentally distracted. There's all sorts of weirdness this body does. I give it like a 3/10 overall. I've been freaking out about my heart for the past few days when I'm distracted. I don't think I feel anything, but I notice all sorts of nonsense when I focus on my chest. For context, I'm 21 and otherwise healthy, so I think it's likely an anxiety related issue. Regardless, I'll prob ask a doc to record my heart for a few days to make sure nothing problematic is happening. Sometimes when I get an itch, I scratch the area that is itching, but it feels like I'm just scratching skin and I don't feel a relief. But when I scratch somewhere close to the area, but not the exact area where it's itching, it relieves. It's so weird. I get that. Usually on my back by my shoulder blades. I scratch all around the area but it kind of feels numb and doesn't relieve the itch. Then I start scratching other areas and it feels like I'm getting closer, but still just leads me to that numb area that feels where the itch should be. When I eat, my jaw does this weird clicking sound. I forget to breathe and only realize it when I feel faint or have the sensation of blacking out. It happens many times throughout the day. When I breathe, I can feel a tiny breeze coming out of my ear. If I sit or lay down for a little while, 10+ minutes, then stand up, I get really lightheaded and my vision goes blurry for like 10 seconds. Then I'm back to normal. I think it might be a blood pressure issue, but I still have no idea what it is. I can do normal activities easily, including biking for miles on end, but apparently I can't stand standing up. Sounds like low blood pressure.